One of the things cannot emphasize enough. If you've got little kids that are not talking, doing a lot of strange behavior, worst thing you can do with a 3-year-old that's not talking is to do nothing. Now, Colorado's better than a lot of places, but I go to some places in the country and they might have to wait a year to get a diagnosis. You got a kid that's not talking at age 3, don't wait. Just start working with this kid. Teaching turn-taking games. That was taught to me with the Parcheesi board. Singing them nursery rhymes, doing words. But the worst thing you can do is let them sit in the corner. Now, I had a chance to go out to JPL. They're the people that put the Mars rover on Mars. That's rocket science. The closest I got to that is I got to sit in the chair of the head rocket scientist in the control room. That was very fun. You know, working with these little kids is not rocket science. And, you know, some people have the knack, because you kind of have to stretch them. You know, if you don't get a little bit intrusive, they don't advance. You push them too hard, they go into sensory overload. So how can you tell whether you've got a kid that's going to be sensitive on going into sensory overload or not sensitive? Well, what do they do when you take them into a big Walmart? If he's throwing a fit every time you go in the big Walmart, then you've got to be more gentle with that child. But you can't just let them sit there withdrawing and rocking all day. You know, I go down in the southeast where there's no services, and I said, well, go to your church group. Get some grannies to work with these kids. But the worst thing you can do is to wait. You know, let's just talk about diagnosis. First of all, diagnosis is not precise. I'm trained as a hardcore scientist. When I went to Australia, I could absolutely sign on the form for the customs that I had never had tuberculosis, because that's a definitive diagnosis. And do a test, and they can test whether I've had it, they can test whether I still have it. That's definitive. These diagnostic things are behavioral profiles. And the thing is, it's a continuum of traits. One is being bipolar, turned into just creative artist. One is being kind of geeky and socially awkward, turned into Asperger's. There's no black and white dividing line. Now, I have made a point in my speaking engagements to not just get stuck in the autism silo. You know, I make a point of getting to do fun talks, like going to the Googleplex. That was really, really fun. Yeah, half the people there are probably on the spectrum. They don't talk about it. I've talked to some of the HR specialists for some of these companies, and they'll go, oh, we know that, but we don't talk about it. In other words, how did those kids get those great jobs? Because they went to a Montessori school and they were apprenticed. They're literally apprenticed into that field. When they're 8 years old, get them on the Udacity website, teach them programming, apprentice them in. So what ends up happening is when you get on the mild end of the autism spectrum, one geek gets to go to the Googleplex, another one I'll find over in a metal fabrication shop, or he's an old hippie my age that runs the maintenance shop at a major plant. You see, well, I've talked to a cattle breeder in his mid-30s that I know's on the spectrum. See, this is what makes me crazy when I go across the silos, because I'm seeing too many of these smart kids, and you know, we got a lot of these high-end Asperger kids that are fully verbal, 17, 21, a lot of those, and I'm hearing way too many, he's playing video games all day and he won't come out of the bedroom. Well, we've got to not let them do that. You know, one of the reasons why they do this is anxiety. When I was 15, I had a choice. I could go to my aunt's ranch for a week or all summer. Not going was not going to be a choice. Well, one place where my teachers drew an absolute line in the sand was I was not allowed to become a recluse in my room. But I was given choices. When I was in high school and I didn't want to go to this Friday night movie night, I had a choice. I could be the projection operator, or I could sit in the audience. So I became the projectionist. You know, you give them, there's some kind of choice. You've got to stretch these kids. And you've got to stretch them just outside the comfort zone. But no surprises. Surprises cause panic. I just was talking to people this morning about, well, how do we transition the kid to the new middle school? It might be a really good idea to visit the school beforehand. It might be a really good idea to look at some of the books. You know, that's, so it's not a sudden surprise. And when we get into the work stuff, look up Project Search on the internet. Project Search. And what they do in this project is the last year of high school, the kids are out working in an internship in a really good job, like maybe sterilizing heart catheters, a really responsible job, but they're very, very closely supervised. And there's an article now in the Journal of Autism and Developmental Disorders with something like 3/4 of them getting jobs and keeping them. And then the controls that didn't do this, the employment rate is absolutely beyond atrociously low. They have got to learn how to work.